Today we're going to be looking at one of the Los Angeles filming locations used in the Batmobile chase scene in 1995's Batman Forever, directed by Satan.
Action.
Using, if not the oldest, then certainly the lamest trick in the book, Two-Face tries to kill Batman, but only succeeds in turning him into a material witness to a double homicide. Batman says, "Later, bitches!" and Two-Face's goons chase him past the wobbliest statue in Gotham City. Seriously, that's not safe. The chase spills out onto a downtown Gotham street and Batman makes a quick, evasive turn into an alley. Only one problem with that maneuver.
You're going the wrong way! You're going to kill somebody!
And as for what happens next, perhaps we should let the director explain.
So this was just a crazy idea that I had, and some people liked it, so we did it. You're just trying to be inventive with how does Batman get out of this situation, and so this is what we decided to do.
Did they ever explain how he got down from there? I mean, did they show it? I don't remember this. This isn't... What's happening? Oh, come on. That's not right.
But hey, it's a Batman movie.
So after reviewing all the BTS and reference materials, the only thing I knew for sure was that the location was somewhere in downtown Los Angeles. But there are so many alleys down there, searching them all one by one would be exhausting. Not to mention... sketchy? Yeah, let's go with sketchy. So like a good detective, I watched the scene a few times, looking very carefully for clues, which I finally found in the form of 2 frames. Okay, we have a lead. Unfortunately, none of the currently operating Kim's cafes or restaurants matched up with our criteria. So normally this is when I'd head to the downtown Central Library and check out their amazing collection of vintage LA area phone books. But yeah. So after a super deep dive on the internet, I finally came across an archived listing from 1998 of restaurant closures in LA. And there we are, Kim's Cafe. Yup, it's a downtown address. Codes M and N. What is... Oh dear. Ew. Okay, so let's check out the Google Street View of the address. Looks good so far. There's an alley. So let's check it out in real life, shall we? Looks good. You'll notice that in the film they are actually traveling the opposite direction of the regular flow of traffic on this one-way street. But the details are matching up, it's looking good. I think we found Batmobile Alley. Now its name is actually Harlem Place, but you wouldn't know that from standing here. That's because it's only marked with street signs in 2 locations, 7th Street and 3rd Street. I mean, who does this guy in the truck think he is? Batman?
You're going the wrong way!
Yeah, that's enough of that. Harlem Place starts at 2nd Street, runs down to 3rd where it stops at a government building, continues on at 4th Street through Batmobile Alley down to 5th, then continues down through 6th and ends at 7th. Before we dive any further into the alley, I want to point out something I only noticed watching the scene after I knew where the location was. The bottom part of the sign of the Alexandria Hotel. Now you may recognize the Alexandria from the movie 7, where Kevin Spacey climbs down the side of the building to evade the police. Just like in real life. Also just a few blocks away is the historic Los Angeles Theater, the interior of which briefly doubled as the casino that Riddler and Two-Face rob. You can check out some fantastic photos of the interior on the LA Historic Corps website. Now I'm sure you noticed the closed gate at the entrance to the alleyway. And if you go around to the other end of the alley on 4th Street, there's not 1 but 2 gates, which may or may not be open and or accessible to you at any given time. So riddle me this. How does one enter an alley with gates at both ends? The answer, it turns out, is from the side. Right smack dab in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, just off of Spring Street, there is, somewhat surprisingly, a tiny little park. Spring Street Park. During regular hours, you can simply walk through the park and exit out the back gate into the alley. Also right next to the park is a small driveway that leads to the parking structure just beyond. This gate seems to be open most of the time. If so, just walk on through. Either way, welcome to Batmobile Alley. This is actually one of the nicest and cleanest alleys in downtown Los Angeles, to be sure. And now we can start matching up more details from the scene, such as the ornamental facade on the building across the street, as well as this roll-down gate. Now it looks like the gate has been modified in the intervening years, but you can see these 3 poles embedded in the ground in front have stayed exactly the same. Also, the concrete trim along the base of this wall has remained unchanged since filming. It's really interesting to see how many of these details are still the same all these years later, and which ones are different. On the other side of this fence is a public parking lot, which technically is actually a filming location itself, as they used it to get a couple of the shots in the scene. You can see the building on the other side of the alley looks a lot better these days than it did then. Now that we're at the far end of the alley, we can see that the dead-end wall that the Batmobile drives up was a creation of the film's art department, as in reality it passes under this part of the building through to 4th Street. Obviously, there were a lot of visual effects involved in the end of this sequence, and Batman Forever was a unique hybrid, one of the last big studio films to use miniatures extensively while also being one of the first to heavily use CGI and digital compositing. Since we're in the special effects end of the alley, I'd like to yield the floor for a moment to legendary visual effects pioneer John Dykstra, who supervised the film's many effects. Watching the VFX featurette on the Blu-ray, I found one of his observations about the power of advanced visual effects particularly interesting, especially given the footage that accompanies his comments. Now, I wouldn't like to speculate if he's referring to anything in particular here, or if the editor was just having a bit of fun, or if it's all just a coincidence. But I found it interesting. Let's watch, and you tell me.
It's an embarrassment of riches, because you can do anything, but doesn't necessarily mean that you should do anything.
Whatever you think of the film, and the Batmobile climbing up walls, I hope that you've enjoyed this little tour of Batmobile Alley. If you get the chance, it's well worth checking out in person. Hey, citizens of Gotham! Thanks for watching. I've got more Batman movie locations coming your way, including more from Batman Forever, as well as some from the UK. So stay tuned.